The story of the Patagonian giants. In 1520, a Portuguese sea captain wrote something in his journal that would confuse historians for the next 500 years. He said his crew had found a man on the coast of South America so tall that an average sailor's head only reached his waist. Was this true? Or was it one of the greatest tricks ever played on the civilized world? Stick around because the answer might surprise you more than the legend itself. The first encounter. Ferdinand Magellan was trying to do something no one had ever done: sail around the entire world. In late 1520, his ships reached the southern tip of South America, a cold, windy region we now call Patagonia. That's when things got strange. According to Antonio Pigafetta, the voyage's official chronicler, the crew spotted a figure alone on the beach, dancing and throwing sand over his head. When they approached, they were stunned. This man was so large that a full-grown European stood only up to his waist. Pigafetta wrote that the giant's voice sounded like a bull. His feet were so big the crew called the local people Patagonians, likely from a Spanish word for big feet. That name stuck. It's why the entire region is called Patagonia today. But one sighting could be a trick of the light, so what happened next made the story much harder to dismiss. More ships, more reports. Over the next 2 centuries, other explorers reported the same thing. In the 1580s, English sailor Anthony Knivet claimed he saw men measuring 10 to 12 feet tall. In the 1760s, the crew of the British ship HMS Dolphin, led by Commodore John Byron, said they met Patagonians so tall the sailors felt like children beside them. Byron himself was over 6 feet, unusually tall for his time, and even he had to look up. When his report reached London, newspapers exploded with the story. Europe became obsessed with a lost race of giants at the edge of the world. Books were written, maps redrawn, scholars debated whether these giants descended from a biblical race. For nearly 250 years, Patagonian giants weren't just rumor, they were printed in encyclopedias as geographical fact. So if separate expeditions, decades apart, speaking different languages, all reported the same thing, how do you explain that? The answer starts with real people who still live there today. The real people behind the myth. The native people of Patagonia were called the Tehuelche, and here's the twist: they weren't myths, they were real and genuinely tall. Modern anthropologists studying their remains found the average Tehuelche man stood around 6 feet, sometimes 6'5". That's not impossible today, but consider the context. The average European sailor in the 1500s stood around 5'5". That's nearly a foot of difference, standing right in front of you on an unfamiliar beach in a moment of fear. Add thick fur cloaks that widened their frames, add straw-stuffed boots that left massive footprints, likely inspiring the Big Feet nickname. Add the psychological weight of meeting strangers in unknown land, far from home. Under those conditions, 6'5" can start to feel like 8 feet, especially by the 10th retelling in a tavern back home. And every retelling made the story grow. A tall man became a giant became a race of giants became international news. Still, one question remains. If it was simply exaggeration, why did the legend survive so long, repeated by careful officers and serious scientists? Why the legend lasted. This wasn't really about height, it was about how the human mind handles fear and distance. Sailors returning from months at sea were treated like celebrities, and bigger stories meant bigger reputations. A tale of unusual giants was far more exciting than one about ordinary neighbors who simply lived differently. There was also no way to check the facts. No photographs, no video, nothing but word of mouth, growing taller with every telling, the way a fish story grows a little longer at every dinner table. By the 1800s, explorers with proper measuring tools finally confirmed the truth. The Tehuelche were tall, strong, and impressive, but human. Not giants in the mythical sense, giants the way one very tall friend feels like a giant standing right beside you. The answer. So back to that captain's journal from 1520. Was he lying? Not exactly. He was describing something real, filtered through fear, distance, and centuries of storytelling that turned a tall stranger on a beach into a legend that shaped maps and imaginations for over 200 years. Sometimes the most incredible stories in history aren't lies. They're the truth, seen through frightened eyes, and made a little better with every telling. If stories like this make you see history differently, you might enjoy sticking around for more.